This is one of the smallest mirrorless cameras you can buy, and I recently bought this one online for as little as £60 here in the UK, but I've also spotted them on sale in the US for around $80 to $90. So what is it, and for that price, is it actually any good? Well, this is the Olympus Pen Mini, also known as the E-PM1, and the reason why you may not have heard of it before is because this camera model was pretty short-lived, with there only ever being 2 models released. As the number at the end of its name suggests, this was the first in the family tree, and it was released all the way back in 2011, with its successor, the E-PM2, launched just a few years later in 2013. Soon after that though, this line of cameras was completely scrapped, for reasons we'll dive into throughout this video, but despite its short lifespan, in many ways this is still a very capable little camera. One of its core strengths, as I've already alluded to, is its small stature. Now, although this is certainly the smallest mirrorless camera that Olympus ever made, it's not actually the smallest mirrorless camera ever made. In fact, it's not even the smallest micro four thirds mirrorless camera ever made. And that's because that accolade is actually held by the Panasonic Lumix GM1, which is a camera I've talked about previously on the channel. But nonetheless, this is still an incredibly small and lightweight option, and when paired with an equally small and lightweight pancake lens, it's a fun little pocket camera ideally suited for street and travel photography. So in order to really put that to the test, I actually decided to take this along with me on my recent trip to Osaka in Japan, and for the majority of the trip it lived happily in my jeans pocket. Now, I won't lie to here, although this absolutely will fit inside your jeans, it is a little bit on the snug side, and that suggestive outline that it creates certainly gives people the impression that you're a little bit too happy to see them, if you know what I mean. So it's almost certainly better to stow this in a larger jacket pocket, which will not only make it more comfortable to transport, but it also severely reduces the chances of your name ending up on some kind of register. But anyway, back in its day, this camera was marketed as a stripped back version of its bigger siblings, the Olympus EP3 and EPL3. And although it's clear that when designing this, someone has just taken the EP3 blueprints and chopped off as many of the manual controls and dials as possible, at the heart of this Pen Mini, there's actually some very impressive technology. But before I get too ahead of myself, we first need to talk about the build and handling, because these are areas where this camera picked up a fair bit of criticism from reviewers back in the day. Firstly, not only does this thing look like a bar of soap, but it also is about as slippery as one, because the only material on this thing that has any kind of friction to it is this small rubberized area on the back section here. Luckily though, I really don't think this is much of a deal breaker, because as soon as you attach a lens, it easily gives you something to hold on to. Plus, as a general rule of thumb, when dealing with smaller cameras, I tend to just attach a wrist strap, because this not only helps to free up my hands when I need them, but it also provides an added layer of security should I accidentally drop it, which, to be fair, despite its very slippery nature, never happened even once. Now, although this camera has all of the manual and semi-manual shooting modes you'd expect to find on a mirrorless camera, there's not actually a physical mode dial, so you have to navigate to these options via the screen. There's also only one command dial on the back of this camera, and it's one of those little fiddly ones that doubles as a D-pad. Now personally, I shoot mainly using aperture priority, so to change the aperture, all I need to do is hit up on this D-pad and then either rotate it to control exposure compensation or tap up and down to alter the f-stop, as shown by these rather handy little yellow arrows on the rear screen. Now, although this is a little bit slow and does take some getting used to, after a while I soon got accustomed to it. However, if you happen to shoot in manual mode quite a lot and you need to quickly adjust the exposure settings on the fly, then just like my jokes, this will get very tedious very quickly. But in all fairness, this was a camera designed for beginners and those maybe upgrading from a compact camera, and when you view this camera through those eyes, it actually has quite a lot of redeeming qualities. The lack of buttons and dials definitely makes it a lot less daunting to handle for newbies, and the settings menu actually comes packed with a bunch of handy pop-up tips explaining what each of the options do. And when the time is right and you feel more confident with handling the camera, these tooltips can be completely switched off, but not without first unlocking this hidden menu. Now, once this has been activated, there's a pretty extensive array of customization options to pick from simple stuff like composition overlays to more pro-end stuff like defining how fast you want the high and low speed continuous burst mode options to operate at, as well as customizing the functionality of some of the shortcut buttons. Now, it's also fair to say that this camera is fairly light on hardware. For example, there's no pop-up flash or EVF. Though on a positive note, Olympus did actually provide a lot of peripheral add-ons for this camera that clips straight into the hot shoe port on the top here, including this flash which actually came included with my camera. There was also a separate EVF unit, a microphone, and also a Bluetooth device that allowed you to wirelessly transfer transfer your images from your camera straight to your PC. PP. The screen on the back is fixed in place and there's no touchscreen functionality, but honestly, my biggest gripe with this whole screen is the fact that it's wider than the native aspect ratio of 4:3, meaning that you permanently have two black bars running down either side of the display. And considering that space is a premium on this thing, I feel like this space could have been better utilized with more shortcut buttons. You can of course go into the settings menu and set the aspect ratio to 16:9 so that your images fill up the whole of the screen, but this doesn't actually apply to the RAW files. No matter what you set this aspect ratio to, it'll always spit RAW files out in a 4:3 aspect ratio, whilst your JPEG images will be cropped to suit. Speaking of resolution, inside this camera there's a 12.3 megapixel micro four thirds chip, which in the modern world of 30 megapixel full frame sensors, some might immediately dismiss this as being old technology. But the reality is that a 12 megapixel sensor is still plenty enough for most situations, particularly if you don't plan on making any super dramatic crops and only ever post your images online. The good news is that this sensor is backed up by a proper mechanical shutter, which actually creates a super satisfying clunk every time you use it, which is something I really wasn't expecting to hear from such a small camera. And unlike its closest miniature rival, the Panasonic Lumix GM1, which I mentioned earlier, welcome back, the shutter in the Pen Mini is able to max out at a respectable 1/4000th of a second, whilst the GM needs to tap out at just 1/500th of a second and then switch over to the electronic shutter. Now the autofocus on this thing is also very fast and accurate for its age. In fact, I believe this offered one of, if not the fastest AF system at the time of its launch, and it also benefits from face detection, which works pretty well. Although the spec sheet details that this camera has built-in image stabilization, which is true, it is an on-sensor form of stabilization as opposed to the most modern form of IBIS, which physically moves the sensor around to counteract movements. But nonetheless, it still seems to work pretty well and is certainly handy for helping to keep your handheld shots nice and sharp. Now, as this big red button on the back here indicates, this does have some video recording functionality too, though sadly the specs are a little bit outdated, maxing out at 1080 HD up to 60 frames per second. But the good news is that you can at least reassign this record button to act as another shortcut to something else you want, which is something I wish more cameras would do. As I mentioned briefly earlier on in the video, in order to keep the camera profile as small as possible, I've mainly been shooting with this, which is a 20mm f1.7 pancake lens from Panasonic, which is actually a lens somebody in the comments section recommended to me in an earlier video, and I cannot find the comment to save my life, so thank you to whoever that was. Now, with this micro four thirds chip, the camera has a 2x crop factor, meaning that this lens captures images that look closer to something like a 40mm lens on a full frame camera. But seeing as my most used focal length these days is a 35mm, this suits me just fine. Plus, one of the benefits of using a micro four thirds camera is the abundance of lens options that are available to you, and it's still very much a format that is live and kicking today. Now, let's be honest, all of that is a little bit meaningless if this camera can't hold its own in terms of image quality. So how does this camera actually perform? Well, surprisingly good actually. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that this thing captures Leica quality snaps, because let's face it, we're relying on a 13-year-old entry-level piece of hardware here. But given its age, size, and the double-digit price point, this is still ticking all the boxes for me personally. The RAW files provide nice natural colors straight out of the camera, and they also offer plenty of flexibility for pulling back details in the highlights and shadows. Obviously, with a sensor of this size and age, if you do push the ISO a little bit too high, you will start to see a fair amount of noise in your photos. Though, to be honest, that kind of thing really doesn't bother me anymore, because we live in the age of AI, and the noise reduction features found in Lightroom these days are an absolute game changer and will get rid of this in a heartbeat. Also, as a slight side note, all of the images you're seeing here have been edited using my Lightroom preset pack, which is available for purchase on my website if you're interested. Oh, and make sure you use the discount code on screen now to receive an additional 10% off. Now, one thing I'm almost certain of is that at some point you will see a comment in the comments section below pointing out that using your smartphone would be a much better option over this seemingly outdated piece of camera gear. And in some respects, they have a point. But to counter that, what I can say is that buying a camera like this is not entirely about capturing the best quality photos possible. It's also about the enjoyment and challenge of using a camera that forces you to think more about how you're actually going to capture the image. If capturing super high quality, high resolution images that look pristine out of the camera is what you're after, then this old piece of shit, it definitely isn't worth your time. But if you're looking for a pocket-sized camera that can nurture you at the foundations of your photography journey and then evolve with you when the time is right, for $80, this Olympus Pen Mini is certainly worth considering.